Hello everybody and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we are back with the Cooler Master Twins. If you recall in our last video, we had these beautiful systems that would have been sent to e-waste, but have been saved and are in various states of repair. What I mean by that is, as we noticed in the last video, there's some external damage to a couple of to different parts of the systems. We have some plastics that are damaged. We have some side panels that are dented in, some scratching, things like that. But on top of that, we also have some interior damage. One of the boards has an issue with one of the RAM clips, as well as there's some headers that were, some jumpers that were slightly damaged by a floating power supply. So I think what we'll do in today's video, I really want to get one of these systems, cosmetically looking fantastic, as well as getting the system up and running fully. So I think, to serve in that goal or that adventure is to strip both these systems completely down, take the system that we're going to keep, in terms of the case, get it all kind of cleaned up, scrubbed up, get it all looking really good, and repair any sort of external damage there is to that. Take the best of both worlds, combine them into one, and do the same as the inside of the system. Get all the components that we want to keep and get them ready to build into the system. The spare components, of course, will be used in a future build of some sort. That said, we have lots of work to do in front of us, so let's get right to it. Okay, so we are back with our case kind of situated differently, just to kind of give us a better understanding, a better idea, a better look of what we need to do to get this apart. And this is system number 1. This is the one that had the damaged bezel on the top of it. So I just want to start working on that system first. And just because of the plastic bezel, it's here, it's all damaged, it's already falling off. I just figured this is the case that we're going to use as the donor case in terms of parts and things like that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just kind of disconnect some of the cables that we have here. Again, it's just always good to have these parts anyway. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is, this is toolless design as I had thought, so just kind of push back, pull up, and it just releases the drive here. So let's pop that out. And so that is our DVD writer model SHS223, just a generic CD or DVD burner. So we'll pull that aside. Always good to have those laying around. I'm just going to remove some of these cables. Now, I do want to say, I want to correct myself from the previous video. The previous video, I had indicated that there were only 3 SATA ports because I had just counted the 3 on this side. But there's 2 clusters of SATA. There's 3 here and 3 here. So there's actually 6 SATA connections on the server board itself. So just wanted to call that out that we do have that. But yeah, okay. So we have one of the SATA cables removed, and we'll continue just doing this as we go to kind of, remove some of this clutter that's inside here to get a better understanding, a better view of what we're trying to do here. And this is the case with the mounted power supply. Again, I don't know how many hours we're on these systems, but again, anytime we have a nice 500 watt power supply from Cooler Master, definitely happy to get one of those. Okay, so I'm slowly moving along here. I mean, there's some decent cable management that's in this case. I think I mentioned that again before. Just a little bit of a bracket with double-sided tape there, keeping everything kind of at bay here. So I'm removing so there's a SATA cable that actually goes up to, okay, so there's an eSATA. Let's pull that top off for a second, take a look. Yeah, so there's an eSATA connection. That's what this red one is. So we're just going to put that as part of the top of the case. I'm going to leave that connected because that is part of the system or the case itself. And the same thing goes with the other components that are leading up to the top here. They're all plugged into the motherboard in some fashion. And let's just take a look here and see what we have. And now that I have that out, I can show you guys the top of the case. I didn't really show that on the last video just because there was so much to do. Just hooked on a little, there we go. Okay. There we go. Okay, so this particular case has the different expansion ports on the top here as well. So those are the things that all feed down into these headers that will plug into the board. But this board either wasn't plugged in or didn't support that functionality. But again, it's cool, but it's a shame that this big chunk of plastic. So here, I can repair some of it and stuff. I mean, the physical metal, this is, again, Cooler Master, right? This is all metal invented. I could potentially fix it and just tolerate that that half that is missing. I'm just going to put that aside as well, just because we have lots to unplug here. Okay, I do like the cable management that does come with this this case. I imagine that's what it came with. But again, it's just nice to see that you can just put, have all the wires running up through here instead of it kind of hanging out on the board itself. Okay, so we'll continue to pull these off the board. So I unhooked the 8-pin cable, the power cable from the board. So that's out now. And we just continue on the same process, right? We just keep on, going through and removing all these extra cables and extensions and all that stuff just to kind of free up the look of the motherboard to be able to get that out and removed. Now I'm removing these type of components as well because if this is going to go back into part storage for now, those will come in handy for future builds that we do. Okay, and we'll do the same thing here. We'll pop out that, and we're going to remove the ATX power connector right there. We have that now removed from the motherboard. How good is this toolless design here? Okay, yeah, just kind of pop it forward. Oh, that seems pretty straightforward. And so yeah, we just have a standard TP-Link gigabit Ethernet card that would have been in this system. Model in this one is TG-3269 that we're taking out. Good to add to the supply as well. TP-Link, I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but I mean, I've never had an issue with TP-Link equipment. Not exactly the highest end brand, but the actual equipment has served itself well. And these are our 1 gigabyte sticks of low profile memory. Always handy to have DDR2. That's what this is. Yeah, 800 memory. Definitely decent RAM as well. And this is the motherboard that has that missing connector right there. And that's why I kind of chose that this system is kind of like the system we're not going to use. And we'll end up using the other one because there's a lot less work that we have to do to restore that one. And that's kind of where we want to go. Okay, so this motherboard is plugged in, or sorry, the fan is plugged into the motherboard. We'll just remove that header there as well. That's gone. I'm leaving the processor kind of in place. I'm going to remove the power supply now from the back of the case just because it will give me more room to maneuver trying to take out the actual motherboard. This case is pretty decent in terms of size. Lots of room to move around in and all that. So definitely not a challenge, but hey, the more space you have, the better. This is pretty hefty, this power supply. And I can only imagine when it was flopping around in the other case, no wonder there was some damage to those jumpers. Now, fortunately, I'm talking about the other case, fortunately, that's all the damage that I saw. We'll be able to do a better inspection when we get the system up on the bench and take a look. A little bit of dirt in here, not a lot. I mean, assuming that this would have been in a server type environment, that's my guess. I would say that it was definitely, in more of a cleaner area, but really good to have this power supply in case it's needed for something. We're kind of just being left with some of the main system components or case components. I debated moving the fan or not, because these fans are always great to have. Now, that other case has these fans already in. Again, these were identical systems outside. Again, I don't know why, but the memory in one of the systems was 8 gigabytes versus 4. Outside of that, everything else seems to be the same. I just found this in the case. Look familiar? That is our latch for our RAM. Very possible to repair that, actually. and put that back on. It's really awesome that we were able to find that, though, in the case. Yeah, look at that. Huh. If I get that, there we go. That's completely been restored back in. There we go. That's awesome. Yeah, perfect. All right, so there we go. The motherboard. This one now officially has no damage to it. I mean, this case still is not what we want, so we're going to take this board out of here and store the board in storage to make sure it's protected. Okay, I'm just going to remove these screws and get them off the motherboard. Okay, I am slowly popping this out. And so how to take these out, you just kind of angle them up at the back here on this way, because you're trying to take out from the I/O, the back I/O shield there. And there we are. We have our Intel server board, actually called Intel server board, S3200SH. But yeah, I mean, it's in great shape. It powered up just fine. And it's just nice to have this. I mean, look at the huge heatsink on the chipset. I mean, just really, really, really awesome to see. And, you know, definitely decent build quality. And I know there's industrial motherboards that are out there you can still buy today, but just nice to have this, you know, being saved from being tossed. Just really good looking board. Okay, I think everything is now out of this board. We have the optical drive out. There was no hard drives to speak of in this system, not to speak of, there just wasn't. And we now have removed the basics. And, you know, if I was going to shred this, you know, recycle this, you know, melt it down, whatever, I would continue to take out parts, because obviously this case is identical to the other one. And so things like this snap off and break, and, you know, fans are helpful and all those things. So I want to make sure I grab all that stuff before this gets recycled, if I was to do that. Okay, I'm going to pop out that I/O shield as well. That's something that we never, ever, ever, ever do, is always make sure you pull out from any system the back I/O shield, because getting them is obviously harder to do. And this is the first time I've seen this, actually, where the back of the I/O shield is padded. Like, there's this kind of metallic padding on the back that the motherboard butts up into softly, and then just exposes the I/O in the back. So yeah, really cool to see this. And yeah, there's different designs. I'm going to pop that in with the, make sure that's in with the server board itself. I believe this front, yeah, I believe if we remember correctly, the front of this case is the good one. The other one, yeah, the power button works fine on this one. And also it has, yeah, I'm just looking at it here. This one here definitely needs to come off. So let's get that front bezel off completely from this case, because we'll need it in the other build. Okay, so by the magic of editing, I do have the front bezel completely removed, and there's absolutely no damage, and the button seems to be working just fine inside the case. And it did take a bit of persuading with the needle nose pliers to get these holders out. I'm going to get the bench all cleaned up, get everything kind of sorted out, and get our second system back up on this bench. Okay, and we're back with the system number 2. This system, if you recall, had some damage to the board here, just where the jumpers were set down in the bottom quadrant of the board itself. And those jumpers being bent was a result, or were a result of this. I mean, literally, this power supply was banging around inside here, and you can see some scratches inside here on the paint and what have you. But I mean, overall, I mean, there's no damage to the power supply. I mean, they're built pretty tough, so I'm not worried about that. I was more worried about the actual motherboard itself, and I'm not seeing any other damage to the board. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that I'm seeing. Like, usually if you see damage to the PCB, you'd have big gouges in here, or dents or scratches or something along those lines that would definitely cause some area of concern. But I'm not having that, you know, feeling here. So I'm feeling fairly confident that we are good to go on that. So I think what we'll do is just kind of do a once over on this, because this ultimately will be the case we're going to use. And I'm generally using this case because the plastics are all complete in here, in full complete. So we're not worried about any of that. I don't have to replace that piece. I mean, there's no damage to the board. I've already realigned the jumpers. This board comes with the 8 gigs of RAM. The more I think about this, the more I look at this, the less requirement there is in my mind to take this all apart and, you know, take the drives out, take all the wiring out, take everything out just to swap a board, or because because of that. But, you know, there's no damage to this, and this board posted just fine, and the RAM tested correctly. The processor is identical, so I think it's fair to keep that. Now, obviously, there's some things I need to do. I need to get some cable management going on here once I get this power supply mounted properly to the case, and that would make a huge difference. We'll swap out the front here on this as well, and I think that's a good plan of attack. So we'll get this sorted out now. Let's get the power supply screwed in. I'm just using the screws from the other system that we had handy. I'm just using these just because we had them out already. Yeah, let's get this sorted out here. Okay, so we have the power supply all firmly mounted in there. So no more parties for that power supply to cause any damage at the end here. Okay, so we have the ATX power supply connector here. We have the 8-pin here as well. So we're not touching any of that. And so we have I have the wires kind of draped out of this, because what we want to do is install the hard drives here. And I'm saying hard drives, plural. I'm hoping to get the RAID set up on this, just a couple 500 gig drives. I want to try to just see if I can find some identical drives. Also, we'll have to align up inside this cable management system power for the optical drive. I don't have that here. It's not up to that area, so we'll have to get that installed as well. So I think the next step we do is get the front bezel off, just because if there's any banging around or anything I need to do, we don't want to do any damage to the hard drives. And as you know, on this channel, I use all real hardware. Okay, so we have our front bezel off. That was, of course, just as enjoyable as the first one was. And I did notice in this one that we had a couple broken tabs that were contributing to that, why that corner was not sticking in. And the alignment issue was probably causing the button not to work correctly. So we were able to do that. So, I mean, if anything, this gives us a lot of spare parts. I did notice as well, as because this is Cooler Master and the design of the fan has, nothing but metal, kind of like a metal mesh here, the backs of these are all foam. And my understanding, based on what I'm seeing here, I mean, is this would catch the dust that's being sucked inside here. So these are removable, as you can see, and you can clean these out, back in though, dust them out, whatever you need to do. So really good to have those spares. And we have our new one here. Well, our new to us because it's a transplant. Before I actually go and do anything with that, because the more I do with this system, the more I'm discovering. So on the front of this system, we have a fan that's in there. You can see the fan there clearly. Sorry about the angle and all that stuff. So you'll see the fan that's there, and see how dirty that is? So I'm going to take apart that fan and just get that all cleaned out, because there is an active fan in there, and we should do that. And what I'll do also while we're here, because the rest of the case is relatively clean. Again, if it was used in any sort of server environment, it would have been fairly clean. And but dust still gets in places, and so there's definitely dust on that intake. None in the back, believe it or not, just the front. So what I'm going to do is get that all clean. We have the front fan all cleaned off, and I wiped the remaining dust, if you call it dust. There wasn't much on here. On the back fan, and the CPU fan looks just absolutely clean. The heatsink looks beautiful. There's no dirt inside there. And, there was a little bit of dust and dirt on the bottom of the case itself and just in the front, but everything else looks good. Again, conducive to the environment that it was in. I think it's time now to get the hard drives installed, and then get all the cables connected as well. Now, this may get some controversy, I'm not sure, but we'll see how it goes. One thing I learned about RAID is that you always use different drives, different manufacturers, different date codes. And what I mean by that is, just making sure there's some kind of redundancy there. And whenever I have two drives, I like to mirror them. So RAID 1 And in this particular case, I have two Seagate drives, which is great, two 7200 RPM drives, which is also awesome, except one is 500 gigabytes and one is a terabyte. Now, I did look through the stash. I did everything I could to find something equivalent, and based on the date codes, these are extremely similar drives. And I figured that's the closest I had if I wanted to RAID this. Now, I don't have to. But I think for the sake of something different on this channel, I'd like to go through that process and RAID these drives. Now, the disadvantage that we get, of course, is the fact that it won't RAID. It'll only RAID 500 gig, which means it'll limit the terabyte drive to be 500 gig. And that's fine for what we're trying to do here. We're not looking for piles of storage on this system. I mean, the more and more, it is a server board. So I'm going to leave it again to you guys in the comments, but I think, we should possibly install Windows Server on this and get that up and running in some form. I do have another terabyte drive that I could use, but it's from 2009. This is from 2015. And I just want to, not have a drive mixed that old. One was 6 gigabyte per second SATA, and the other one is 3 gigabytes per second. And these are both 6. So I wanted to get something that was 7200 RPM, which we have. We have two data transfer rates, which are very extremely similar, if not the same. We just have different storage spaces, capacities. So we should be fine. All right. So let's see if I'm going to be proven wrong or not. So the first thing we're going to do is pop out this beautiful toolless design. And I'm going to put the wires to the back. So I'm going to face them that way because I do have the other side of the case off. So we shouldn't have any problem doing that. So the nice thing about the toolless design, just pop them in like so. And it just goes in, those little pegs just go in where the hard drive, where the screws normally would go. And it just takes a little bit of, messing around there. But I mean, these are very, very secure. And then what you do after that is just slide them into where they would go like that. And then they clip in. Literally, that's it. That's how you install the drives. And I'll put in the other one there as well. Now, what was that now? Something just came off of this. And I want to see what that is. Okay. So a piece of plastic had broken off from that. So we won't be using that one there. Again, another great reason to have a spare one of these. Okay, and we'll do the same thing again. Make sure the drive is upright in the caddy. And we'll make sure it's facing that way. Let's get it in here. We shouldn't have any difficulty. Again, same idea. Pop the pegs into where the screws would go. And like so, you now have a drive already. And we'll pop that in. There. Okay, so I'm going to leave that other one out, but let me grab one from the other system that I'll be able to use in place of that. Not that that's a big deal. We're not putting any drives in there, but just for the sake of what we're trying to do, complete a complete system, or make a complete system, we want to make sure we have it. So here we go. Pop that in there. There, perfect. So we have all the drives in there that we need, the two drives, and everything else is looking good. So let me flip around the case so we can get access to the other side and plug in the power and SATA cables. Okay, so this is the reverse side of the case. So what I'm going to do is, that's for the other part up there. So I'm just going to grab the other SATA cable. And so here we go. So we have one SATA cable, which is going to be for one of the drives here. Pop that in, and we'll do the same thing. And the nice thing about this, again, like I said, it just goes in behind this case, this panel, and you don't ever see it, which is great. Let me see if I get my hand in there for the other one. There we go. If I was smart, I would have fed them down a little better, and I did not do that. Okay, so we have the two data connections in there. We have those connected, no problem, and those will all hide in behind that panel. So speaking of panel, now that we have the hard drives installed in this case, what I think we should do now is put that panel on here. Now, the panel we're going to be using is going to be not this one, the one that came with this case itself. If you see, this is the one that had some gouges. See that big scratch where the light is showing there and what have you. I mean, there's no physical dents in this, but neither are there in the other one. And I know I can pull that out, and there's no scratches in that one. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And here we are with a perfectly good side panel. No scratches, no dents. So I'm going to slide that on there nicely, just like that. And there we go. Nice and flush. There's no issues with that. Looking pretty darn good, I think. And we'll get the screws put in the back here. Now I'm doing this, of course, assuming that there's nothing going to be wrong with those hard drives. That's the goal here. I just hope that that holds true as we go through this process. I'll put number 2 in here now. There we are. We have 1 and 2. Okay. Now, the other thing that we had talked about before is that front panel case. So that front panel is the one that, like I said, this is in much better shape, just because it doesn't have, all the plastic pieces and all the grommets and everything are in great shape and will fit right in there and hopefully hold. That was the problem, is that it wasn't holding in the other one. So these should just clip right in. Yep, there we go. They're all just snapping in there. And it just requires only 6 of them, and then that's it. So there we go. And that power button works beautifully. That's what we want. Nothing like satisfaction, I tell you. It's looking really good. So we have our hard drives in, and we have our front panel back on the case. Now, I'm going to just give it a little bit of a bath here. I'm just using isopropyl alcohol for this. This is the spray stuff that I have here, just to give it a nice cleaning. Just alcohol, right? And it just gives it a good rub down. You can see the difference here already. Just getting this nice and clean. So we have that done. Let's flip it back over and start working on the inside again. Okay, now that we have the power kind of and the SATA kind of going back there, I just want to take a look here to see if we can get the cable management under control a little bit more. We still got to run that to the top here. That's going to be for our SATA. Just make sure I line it up right. This is going to be for our SATA disk drive. Just pop that in there. There we are. And we'll use those cable management, or that cable management here. And we'll pop all that in. And this is the power that I had mentioned earlier for the front fan. And that's the one we've taken apart and cleaned. So I'm just going to pop that in there as well, just to make sure we have that. And that uses a Molex. And the nice thing about this Cooler Master power supply is it does contain Molex. So we're going to take advantage of that all day long instead of having to use an adapter. There we are. I like how it locks in there. It has little latches in here that it holds on to. So it's really nice. Okay, we'll put that in there as well. And we'll try to put all the wires into the cable management as we go, and I'm just going to snap them closed so that we kind of have them together. There we are. We'll do the same thing as we go here, making sure that they're all in there. Sometimes I miss them. So we have the power, we have the data, we have the power and the data connected to the hard drive. So really the rest of this is all just, to be cleaned up. And so I'm just going to start doing that now, get everything kind of lined up here. In the holders here. So the one that I left out was this one, only because, there's no real easy way to put that in there because of the short cable or shorter cable. If it was just a little longer, I could run it along inside the channel. I can do it in these bottom one. Actually, I could probably do it in the bottom one, but that's pretty much it. It's not really conducive to trying to get it to where, we want it over there. We just want to kind of keep it out of the way there. So we have our cable kind of management done. Power supplies mounted. I'm going to use the onboard Ethernet. I know before we had the built-on. Actually, you know what? I have it. I'm going to use it. I've just decided. So there's no reason why we shouldn't use it. Plus, I have an open spot on the board here, and the other computer did have it, and this one did have it at one point. So let's do what we can to restore it the best we can. There we are. We have that in there. Awesome. Now, for what I'm doing today, I'm going to leave the PCIe expansion empty for now. I'm not looking at introducing any new factors with regards to a video card or things like that, because the more I'm building the system, the less I'm aiming towards any sort of gaming, and the more I'm leaning towards building, kind of a server environment here. So I'm going to, I think that's what we should do for now. Now, in terms of the other panel that we have, and that's the one with the fan in it, this is the one that came with this one here. And I'm just going to look at the other one real quickly just to see what we have. Yeah, I mean, both are extremely similar. There's some scratches on this that are not on the other one. We'll probably end up using this one here just because it looks like the best of the mix. And this one here also has a fan connector for the side. And so, I mean, we should really connect that if we can. There's an extra Molex here, so we're going to use that one here. And we'll just pinch that down, pop it in, and there we go. I'm just going to take a look at the fit just to see, because there's a warp in both of these, and I don't know if that's the fan doing that or what it is. So let's just take a look here. All right, that goes in there like that. No, that's nice and flat. Okay, so this is the better of the two then. Okay, so for this one, I am going to be using the thumb screws because this side is the accessible side, and I'm going to just do this. Now, I mean, I didn't fire the system up yet, other than testing it during our original testing for post, and I'm doing it this way because I'm going to have faith that we are good to go. Now we're going to do a little bit of a spray here, a little spray, get this all kind of cleaned up. And the nice thing about the alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, is if it goes inside the computer, it dissipates extremely well. Yeah, that's looking fantastic. A little bit of scuff mark on the outside, but nothing. I mean, in the end of the day, we're going to have a perfectly good system that is the combination of two computer towers, I should say, and ideally this will give us what we need for cosmetic looks, but also we have all working parts inside the computer. I think the next step is to fire the system up and get the RAID going. I was in the middle of cleaning the vent shop, and I thought, well, you know what I'm going to do is get this kind of case all cleaned up here. I saw there's little rust marks there, but I don't know if it's actually rust. They seem to be coming off, whatever it is, with the toothbrush and isopropyl alcohol. So I'm going to get all that cleaned up first, just because I'd like to have a nice clean system just before we try to fire it up. Gives you a better sense of completion here as well. The whole system is beautiful. It's all restored back to normal. No more plastic destroyed. The front actually is connected where it should be. The power button hopefully works. I'm not going to hit it just yet because the power's all ready to go. Both side panels, no scratches. If anything, is very minor. What we should do now is get the system powered up, make sure it still posts, make sure that all the changes are good, make sure it detects the hard disks. We have our lights on there. Now, I remember from our first video, this does take a few minutes to load up. Something's going on. Okay, so it's trying to detect something. And in the BIOS, there's not much more to say there outside of the fact. Okay, Control E to enter the configuration. Okay, here we go. So I think this is probably already installed as firmware. I'm not sure. Hello, everybody. Future me here. Just during editing, and you'll see in this sequence, we are working through configuring the RAID configuration. We set it to RAID 1, which is mirror. For anybody wondering what RAID 1 is, mirror allows to write data to both drives at the exact same time. The difference in capacities of the drives don't make any difference. In this particular case, we were able to get it working no problem, and it does show online. Now, in retrospect, I should have used the CD that came with it. It would have been a much easier interface to utilize to configure the RAID. Either way, we learn something new every day, as the adage goes, and we were able to successfully set this up through this sequence. So let's continue on with the video. Okay, so I've gone ahead and configured the RAID on the system. So I took the 2 drives. It did only make it 500 gig, which is what we want. And I told it to initialize the array. I created the array RAID 1, and it was able to initialize. And I selected the boot as well to tell it to boot from that system. So now let's see what it detects after I've saved the configuration, hoping that it keeps everything in line. Let's see what pops up here. Awesome. So now it's showing virtual drives configured. And here we are. We have another successful build. We had started off with 2 systems, the Cooler Master Twins, and through the process, we were able to have 2 become 1. No, I'm not going to sing for everybody. But yeah, so I mean, we have a beautiful working system. We have the RAID array online under RAID 1. So they'll be mirrored. So all the data will be written to both drives at the same time. Both drives, different sizes, but that's okay. It seems to be working just fine. We have our processor all good. This is the 8 gigabyte system that I had chosen. And so we have that installed as well. And yeah, I mean, outside of that, I mean, we have everything that we need set up on the system already that we need set up. And I'm just really excited to get going with this system and seeing what we can do with it. I mean, I think it'd be a shame to install like a Windows 7 or something from the era of 2010. You know, even if we went even Windows 10 stretching it, I'm thinking let's do something different on the system. Let's install Windows Server potentially on this and get that up and running. I mean, what someone commented in below is that, you know, install NAS on this system and work that way. And yeah, I mean, anything's possible. So let me know down in the comments what you would like to see installed on this beautiful server that we have saved. Again, another system saved from turning into a spoon. I saw some comments about that as well. So love the interaction on this channel, guys. Absolutely love it. Thanks so much for supporting everything. So that said, there's going to be another part to this video. I'm going to wait for everybody to let me know down below what we should install on this computer for an OS. If you liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification button. Subscribe, please. Like I say, it really helps the channel grow if you do that. I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you very much for your support, and we're going to see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.